Hello YouTube, welcome to another video discussing Persona, but this time I'm going to talk about my experience playing Persona 3 Reload, which I'm just going to shorten to Reload for the rest of this video. I actually originally recorded this video way back in March during my spring break, but I had to quickly shift all of my attention to schoolwork, group projects, job hunting, and as of the recording of this video, I recently graduated college and I turned 22. As a result, because I'm no longer in school, I want to put more time and effort into doing things I enjoy, which includes content creation. Plus, in addition, I started to kind of disagree with my original script, and I feel like I spent too much time on points that didn't really matter that much, and then vice versa. This video is going to be more of a compare and contrast to my experience playing Portable than like a complete original review. So if you want a more in-depth analysis on like Persona 3 and its characters and story, then I recommend you go watch my video talking about Portable. Without further ado, let's get started. So I think the best quality that Reload had by far was its visual presentation. I know that there were a lot of like hardware limitations or whatever on the PSP, so because of that, Portable's graphics were very limited, and as an end result, most of my gameplay in Portable was just a 2D visual novel. Like, there have been so many memes where people will say, oh, Persona 3 Portable gameplay be like, and it's just like a blue or pink circle, which is like, it is kind of true. As annoying as it is kind of true. Playing Reload made me realize just how much I missed out on like proper visuals, especially for a lot of the storytelling elements. Reload had just stunning visuals, not just the 3D rendered, not just the 3D animations, but the 2D anime styled animations added such needed flair to a lot of the more serious moments in the game, like Shinjiro's death, when you confront Ikutsuki, Chidori's sacrifice, and the rooftop ending are like a few moments I can name off the top of my head. In addition, I also feel like the voice acting was slightly better than the original, which also added a bit more to that visual presentation, because a lot of the cutscenes just had, in my opinion, just like stronger vocal performances. I think the original games will always have like a certain level of charm to a lot of the characters' voices, but I think the modern cast did a pretty good job at like being able to replicate the older voices while also trying to push towards like higher quality voice acting. In terms of who I thought were my favorite of the new voice cast, I personally think that Junpei and Mitsuru were the two characters where I actually prefer the Reload voice acting over the Portable version. Junpei's vocal range in this game felt so much broader, especially during Chidori's sacrifice, where you just get to see him go through this wide range of like, you know, slowly realizing the seriousness of the situation to becoming sad and then enraged and then just damn right just depressed for like the following days. And then on the other side of the coin, I love how emotional Mitsuru feels. Like, a lot of her like scenes felt very similar to the original, but like during more emotional moments, like when her father is dying, she just has this like bigger, I don't know, she just has more life in her. When she's like, you know, when she like yells out to her dad, or when she starts sobbing afterwards, it's like, I don't know, something about it hit a little harder in this game. I feel like a close second in terms of voice acting would probably come down to like Aigis, and I guess Fuka as well. Like, I think I kind of miss that Aigis's shift from sounding like a robot to a human. Feels a lot like she sounds a lot more human-like in this game all throughout, which is like not a terrible decision, but like I kind of miss her sounding like a genuine robot in the beginning of the game in the original. But you know, it's not like a major thing. Same with like Fuka's voice is kind of in a weird spot, because like Fuka's voice feels completely different, and it took me a while to get used to. And at first I didn't really like Fuka's new voice, and then as time went on, I was just kind of like, okay, you know what, this is pretty good. The rest of the voice cast were like kind of like okay. I personally did not like Akihiko's new voice. I think his actual voice actor sounds great, but like he just sounds too mature. Like, Akihiko's supposed to be like this rugged like 16-year-old or whatever, and like this guy sounds like a grown man, and it kind of threw me off, especially in like more like intense scenes when he's like yelling and stuff. I don't know, maybe it's just me. I think the next major thing I noticed about this game was like the music. Obviously, like the audio quality of this game is going to be much better, right? There's not as many limitations, it's advanced technology, whatever. There's a new singer in this game that completely replaced the original. I feel like her voice is really really good, but I prefer her work on like the original songs for Reload. Like, you know, like the opening theme, It's Going Down, Color Your Night. Like the original music in Reload does a much better job at showcasing her vocals rather than basically trying to hear her mimic Yumi's original voice. Like, I don't know, something about it just sometimes it threw me off, but sometimes it was actually slightly better. But I think overall, the music in this game felt like pretty similar to like Portable's. Like there weren't any songs where I was like, oh, this is so much worse or so much better than the Portable version. Like the music felt pretty inoffensive. I think the biggest complaint that I personally have is the lack of options for music. So what I mean by this is when I was playing Portable, there was music that specifically was catered for the femc route in Portable. You know, when you play as the female protagonist instead of the male, there were like, I think like there were a pretty decent handful of songs and they were like really good. And on top of that, when you were in Tartarus, you were actually allowed to pick different songs to play besides like the default Tartarus music. I personally found them to be pretty good, but like when I opened that same music menu in Reload, it just felt kind of dry. Like I think it was like a small handful of songs from like the original game and then like one song from Fez, which to me is like, why? Like I feel like especially for a game like this, you have the original Persona 3, Persona 3 Fez, which I'm going to talk more about later on in this video, Portable, and then Reload. You had 4 versions of music to pick from, and that's not even including like the spin-off games or whatever. There should be at least like a dozen options to pick from by default. I do know that they added some like background music stuff via like DLC, like you have to pay a couple bucks, and it's like, I don't know, I think that's just kind of a weird tactic, and that's a whole different conversation in of itself. But like having that lack of options feels kind of underwhelming. Like I feel like even in the base game, give players the option to listen to the Reload version or the original version of certain songs, like I don't know, or give the option to play the Portable songs. Portable had really good music, by the way. Like I want to specify, there was really good songs exclusive to Portable, but none of them exist in this game, and it's like, okay, sure. And then I think my biggest gripe with Reload is going to stem from how they changed Tartarus. So I want to just quickly get this out the way. Obviously, like I said, you can go watch my Portable video for more in-depth information on what I'm about to summarize. Tartarus in Portable was very difficult, absurdly difficult at times. The differences in difficulty between normal enemies, the mid-tower bosses, which sometimes took me hours worth of attempts to deal with, and then the Shadow Arcanas were just completely different. There were like several moments where I genuinely was like, oh wow, I'm just not gonna play for the rest of the day. Like that's how bad some of the mid-tower bosses got. Because there was nothing else to do, what I would often have to do is backtrack and climb back up to them, which basically made Tartarus just super boring. I know like that's the common consensus, Tartarus is like the most boring part of 3, but Tartarus was like genuinely some of the most mind-numbing shit for me to do. So Reload changed this in 3 major ways. The first thing is that each block of Tartarus, each segment, now has unique layouts, right? Including special events for like some of like the later ones. 2, there were additional features to help with farming XP. This was like the Monad doors, the Monad passages, which was just like a longer door, and then great clocks, where like if you had people in your party that were behind in levels, you could essentially just activate this thing and you can choose 2 units to immediately jump to your like Makoto's level. And then the last section is that the difficulty across the entire board was nerfed significantly, which meant this applied not only to Tartarus but also the Shadow Arcana battles, anytime you fight members of Strega, and the entire fight versus Nyx. Now I think on paper these were really good. These were really good decisions, but I feel in execution, I'm kind of jaded. Like, here's my thing. When I normally play any JRPG, not just Persona, but I'll say like Fire Emblem, for example, is a big one. I always play these type of games on normal difficulty first, and then every time I revisit the game, I play on harder and harder difficulties. Because normally I just kind of want to spend my first run just kind of like experiencing the game, right? Experiencing the story, the characters, and to some extent the gameplay. And then when I get to the harder difficulties, that's when I can start adding more strategies. That's when I can start doing, you know, more, I guess, complicated strategic things. I don't mind playing normal difficulty for most games I play. But with that being said, this game was like piss easy. It was ridiculously easy. I did not get a single game over until I tried to fight Elizabeth for the first time, which I don't even think counts because her fight is completely optional. Had I have not attempted to fight her, I would have gotten 0 game overs. I beat every single Shadow Arcana, fight with Strega. I beat all the phases of Arcana versus Nyx, all in the first try. And those mid-tower bosses that I was talking about earlier, those were a joke. Even the fights in the Monad doors were just easy. And I feel like when you lower the difficulty this much, while combined with making it easier to get XP, it feels kind of overtuned. And I personally, if I knew that they were going to do this, I would have just preferred that they had kept the level of difficulty that they found in Portable, if this was going to be their solution of sorts. Oh yeah, and one last point I almost forgot to mention is the lack of Fez content. You remember Fez that I was talking about like a minute or two ago? Fez had, from what I understand, Persona 3 Fez was literally just the base game with like additional cutscenes and like higher quality graphics or whatever. And also there was a bonus epilogue centered around Aegis for like a more conclusive ending, because the original ending is like somewhat vague as to like how the rest of your party members move forward after your sacrifice. So like episode Aegis was meant to, well, you know, the bonus epilogue episode Aegis was meant to give like an answer to that. So what they did in this game was not include it in the base game. They repackaged it as DLC, $35, which, why would you put it, for one, why would you make what was basically base game content into DLC? And two, from what I've understood, I've never played it myself, but from what I read from like reviews, most of it is just Tartarus with like a little bit of extra story, right? That story is good, but like I don't feel like it's worth playing through what I understood is like an even harder version of Tartarus again. Sure, it would add more difficulty, but like Tartarus isn't fun. Whether Tartarus is easy or hard, to me wasn't that enjoyable. So I don't know. I personally have no desire to play what's essentially just Tartarus Part 2. So I think to wrap up my thoughts on the game, I think a lot of the criticism I've seen from people online mostly to me stems from people who just cannot get over the nostalgia that they have for like the original titles. To be fair to them, I won't act like this is like the best way to play through Reload. Like visually this game is amazing, and I personally am a fan of the newer voice cast and like the upped like audio quality. But like if you want to play like a game with like some level of difficulty, Reload is like not, I guess, like again, I don't know if like the harder difficulties change this, but from like a normal perspective, Reload is not the experience you want. If you want like a more challenging Persona game, you're probably better off just like playing Golden, if I'm just being honest. But you know, regardless, I would still give this game like a 4.2, like 4.2 stars out of 5 or whatever. If you've never played Persona 3 to any capacity, I recommend that you probably can just wait for this game, because Atlas games go on sale all the time. Just wait for this game to go on sale for like half off. This game normally costs a full $70. I think I got it for like 30, like 25, 30 bucks when it was on sale. I think that's all I'm going to say for today. So if you guys enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe, drink water, and I will see y'all in the next video.